A really common scenario for any program really is to have some configuration file. I'm going to create some configuration file here to describe something, well, really something that can be configured. And let's say color. Color equals blue, and width equals, width equals, I don't know, 1000 maybe. And height equals maybe 4000. So this is not Ruby code, this is just a configuration file. And I'm gonna save this file in my code folder, although it's not code, I'm gonna save it there. And I'm gonna call it program underscore configuration. Now this file is just a text file. Let me just clean this. So it's just a text file that has this content in it. It has no special meaning by itself, and it's definitely not Ruby code. Maybe this could be some code, but that's not the intention here. And the goal here is that this is going to be some file that a user can configure for any kind of software, really. And since this is a very common scenario in software, that to have configuration files which are gonna, well, configure things, I'm gonna go and make this in this lesson an actual real world scenario software. It's gonna be very basic stuff that is gonna read this file and print these configuration values. So first thing is to actually, before that, I want to just go and decrease the size of this because we don't need it. And yeah, so I'm going to create a new file here, which is going to be our Ruby code, and I'm going to save it also in the code folder. It's important that it stays in the same folder where the program configuration is, and I'm going to call it configuration.rb. So configuration.rb could be any name, just because this refers to reading configuration. So I'm going to start with something that is like data equals file.read, and I'm going to put in here program configuration. So I want to tell something about this lesson. So this lesson is going to be a little bit different than others, and don't worry too much if you don't understand things, because I intend to explain everything, every new concept a little bit more in depth in the next few lessons. So for this one, we just want to do a software that is going to actually do something useful. So file.read and then puts data. And what this is going to do, now let's run this, and Ruby configuration.rb. So I press enter, I see this result here. So this result is actually the same that is inside this file. And this is because what is happening here is that file read is the way that you read files in Ruby. So file read, and then you pass the first parameter is the name of the file that you want to read, and the returning value of this is going to be the content of the file. So in this case, the content of the file is going to be assigned to the variable called data, and here on line 4 we are then printing the value that is in the data variable here. So we want to actually go and now we want to take all these values here and we want to put these in code. We want to have this somewhere where we can go and access it. Like if I want to now in code, for instance, if I want to know what value is there in color, how do I know that? How do I know? Because data is just a string. So the value inside here is a string. And how can I extract these meanings, or these? How can I extract the fact that color is blue and the fact that width is 1000? How can I extract that from this data from this string? So we have to do some processing here. And to begin with, I'm gonna do like puts data.class. So data.class. That's probably new to you, and if we run this, what's going to happen is it's going to print string. So you can see here string. So what does that mean? Well, that really what this means is that this is taking the type, or we could also say this is taking the class of the variable data. So what kind of, what sort of value, what kind of value, of what type of value, or even what class of value is inside data. And we use .class to know that. So we know that data is, whatever is inside variable data is a string. That's how we know in Ruby. That's how you do in Ruby. You use the .class method or .class function. So data.class is gonna tell us that. Now data, a string has a method called lines. So data.lines. And if you remember, in the last lesson, I told you, I teach you how to go and read Ruby documentation and find about these methods. So you can see all those methods there. You should do this exercise of going back there in the documentation, reading, finding the lines method and where it is, and reading documentation about it. And if you read about it, you're going to see that these lines, it returns a slightly different class, which is, or a slightly different type, however you want to call it. And this type is array. So I'm going to go more in depth about the array type in the few next lessons. For now, I'm just going to use it and probably you get the grasp of what it is. So data.lines, if I print it like that, so what is the content that's going to be printed here? Well, it's going to be exactly the same thing. So exactly the same result as here when we were printing the string, and now we're printing the array and we got the same result. However, if we get, for instance, the data.length, so this is going to be the length of this string, we have, sorry about that, we have 41. So 41 characters or 41 bytes. So that's going to be the length of this data. And if we do instead data.lines.length, we're going to get what? 4. So 4, what is 4 here? 4 is the number of lines here. If you count the lines here, there are going to be 4 lines. If we come here to the program configuration file and we just add new lines, and could be blank lines, and we save the file and run the program again, so now we see that we have 8 lines. 8 lines. So we have line, we have 8 lines. Although it's showing 9 here, but this is some detail I don't want to go in depth now. But yeah, really it's 4 lines. Even though you see a 5 here. So don't worry about that now. We're gonna see. We're gonna learn about that in the next few lessons, as I said. So what I want to do here is that this data.lines is an array. What this means in reality is that this is a list. So this is a list. You can think of it as a list of the lines of the file. So what I want to do here now is I want to do add a new variable, which I'm going to call number of lines equals data.lines.length. So we know that we have this variable is going to hold a number or an integer, which is going to be the number of lines in this file. So and now I want to go over each line and process it so that we can extract the data that is in there. So the way I want to do this is I want to do a loop. So I'm going to do a loop and then use this do and thing here. And so this loop, although it's not, you see that the do and the end here, they're like they are now bold and they are in blue, and the loop is not. However, the loop should also be because it's also what we call a keyword. So the loop should also be blue and bold like this. For whatever reason it's not, but it would have the same meaning. So this is how you do. This is actually a loop, and it's going to be an infinite loop. So we want to have a variable here, which is going to be called I. I'm going to call it I. Let me just use a better name for it. Current line. And we're going to say that the current line is 0. You're going to see now why we're saying 0. And what I want to do here is current line equals, and then current line plus 1. I'm just copy pasting the variable name. So current line equals current line plus 1. And well, let's do some experimenting here. So puts current line is, and then if you remember from last lesson, string interpolation, you should remember that. And now this is going to print the current line, right? Well, if you run this, you can see that it's running very fast, and we are already on line, I don't know, this is 15 million or 1 million, 2 million, I don't know. It's too fast for me. So as I said, this is a loop, so you can see this is what this is actually performing here is it entered this loop. So and here we have a block of code. So we also discussed about blocks of codes in a previous lesson. So here it's printing the current line. So current line is, and then it's going to print the number of the current line. And then we are saying that current line equals current line plus 1. So what is it doing is that it's taking current line, summing it with the value 1, and then assigning the result of this equation. It's going to assign this back to current line. And then because we have this loop directive here, whenever the code reaches the end here, it's going to go back to this do again, and it's going to execute over and over and over again. And there's really no limit for it. It's going to execute forever. So we have to break this somehow. We have to just break this loop. So you see the program is running here, and to stop it on your keyboard, you want to press Control C. So it's going to be Control C. If you press Control C, this is going to happen. So don't worry about this. Don't worry about this really. What Control C does is that it interrupts the program. So the program was running, and we Control C. It sent a sign out to the program, and the program was interrupted. Yeah. So we can see that we reached 15 million. Wow. Anyway, if I run this again, same thing is going to happen. So it's going to be an infinite loop. So we have to have a way to break this. So how can we break this loop? How can we say, okay, end this loop, I don't want it anymore? We can use an if for that. So if current line is equals let's say 10, then we say break, and you already saw that break became blue and bold, and what it means is that break is also a special name in Ruby, and special names we call them keywords. So that's a keyword. And if we run this now, you're gonna see that it's gonna go from 0. So current line is 0, and then here on line 10 you can see the current line is, well, and then the value of the current line is 0, and then it prints current line is 0, and then it goes to current line equals current line plus 1, and now the value of current line is going to be 1, because 0 plus 1 is going to be 1. And if you see that the condition is going to be like if, and then the value of this current line is going to be 1, so if 1 equals 10, then break. However, 1 is not equal to 10. This means it is gonna skip over this if and jump right to the end of it without executing the code in here. So it's not gonna break, which means it's gonna go back to the beginning of the loop again, and then it's gonna print. So remember, the value of current line is now 1, so it's gonna print current line is 1. So we have this second line here, and then again it's gonna do like current line plus 1 is gonna be 1 plus 1 is gonna be 2. And then this value 2 is going to be put inside the variable current line. And therefore, this means that the value of current line is now 2 instead of 1, or instead of anything else. And then, again, this if is going to execute, and it's going to say, okay, if 2, which is now the value of current line, so if 2 equals 10, which is false, it's just going to go after the if, and, well, I hope you got the idea, and that's why it's printing like current lines 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and it's not printing 10 because let's see what happens here. So let's say that the value of current line is 9. So puts and then current and then the value of this is 9. Therefore, it's going to print current line is 9, which is this last line that was printed here. So current line is 9, and then on line 12 over here, it's going to do like 9 plus 1. So 9 plus 1. And if you paid attention, when I went about to say what this line would do, I skipped over to the right side of this equation of this equal sign, because really what's happening here is that this part of the code is being executed before this one. So this is very important to understand. So this is being executed before this one. So first it is taking the value of current line, which is 9, then summing up 1, so it's 10, and it's taking this 10 and putting, and then it's executing this. So current line equals 10. So now the value of current line is going to be 10. And then naturally you go here and if 10 equals 10, which is true, and then you call break. So break is this special keyword in Ruby, and break is going to break the loop. So if you are inside a loop, it's going to break it. If we would be like outside a loop like this, so this would be an error. So it does make sense to do this. So let me Control Z. Yeah, so it's going to break, which means that right here, if I had, for instance, current line, let's do it. Let's do current line. Oh, come on. Current line equals, and then current line, like this. So if we execute this now, we're going to see that, well, we have this last line here because this loop executed and then it was broken. So this break is going to redirect the code execution right to this end here, or to the one line after this end thing. And then it's going to continue executing the code from here on. So it's going to be puts current line equals, and then the last value that was in the current line variable was 10, which of course, because 10 equals 10, and then break, go to here, execute this code, and then you see that the value was indeed 10. Now this break, what it does is that, let's say we want to do current line equals 100, and if we execute this, you see that current line is still 10. That's because this is breaking here, and this code will never ever be executed because this break doesn't allow this to be executed. So this break is gonna move the code execution right to after this end block here. So this means there's no way this code can be executed because there's this break here, which is always gonna move the execution flow to here. Anyway, we can remove this. That makes sense. It's not going to help for our use case of reading this configuration file. So I'm going to continue to read this. So what we want to really do here is, I put this 10 here, but what we actually want to have is, we want to go until the end of the line. Like, how many lines does this file have? Well, this file has number of lines. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it here. And now we can go and we can say, well, current line is 0 and then 1 and then 2 and then 3. So that is great because this file has indeed 4 lines, right? So 4 lines here. And what we can see that what it is now doing is it's going through each line of the file. Now I want to do a little bit more than this, and I want to say current line is, and then I'm going to say like just line is, and then line or better than this, line, and then the line number is, and then the line contents. So line contents. So I want to print the contents of this line, and to do that we're going to do data.lines, and then we are going to take the current line, like this. So don't worry if you don't understand. I'm going to explain it line by line just in a while. And execute this. You see that line 0 is, and then there's nothing here. And then line 1 is, and I'm going to put the configuration file that we are reading here so you can compare it. So line 0 is, and then there's nothing. And you see there's nothing because line 1 is actually empty. And here you see I'm saying line 0. So line 0, you see that it matches with what is calling here line 1, so the first line. So and then the second line, which is saying here line 1 is color equals blue, which you can see is the second line over here. And then the third line, and then a fourth line. And that's the end of, well, the end of the file. So one difference here is that here it is 1, 2, 3, 4, and here it's using 0, 1, 2, 3, and it's actually working. So what is happening here? Now I want to talk a little bit, just a little bit about arrays. So remember that this was an array. So when we printed like data.lines.class, it printed array. So an array is kind of a list. It's actually a list. So it's an ordered list, and it has a first thing inside the list. There's a second thing inside the list, and so on. However, in Ruby, you can do now. You can do this square brackets thing here, which is the way in Ruby where that you use to access elements in a list. And what you're doing here is that we're accessing the element at position current line. So if you could do something like data.lines and then 0. This will take so these are all the lines of data. And this thing would say, give me the first line of data. And this thing here would say, give me the second line or the second element of this list. So this list has an order of elements, and 1 is going to be the second element, and 2 is going to be the third element, and 3 is going to be the fourth element, and 0 is going to be the first one. So I think you got the idea that you can index elements, you can fetch elements from the list by giving the number. However, it always starts on 0, not from 1. That is true for most programming languages. So most programming languages out there have this concept of arrays, lists. That's a very foundational concept in computer science. And also you can access elements. In most programming languages, this is going to be the notation. It's going to be square brackets and then the number inside. Or of course, also a variable. And in most programming languages, it's going to be indexed by 0. So 0 is going to be the first element, 1 is going to be the second, and so on. There are a few exceptions, a few programming languages where you would start by 1. But yeah, I think that's very a matter of opinion of who created the programming language. Anyway, in Ruby 0 and also in others, I suggest you get used to that. Just the easier way to deal with it. And what is happening here now, if you think about it, is, so let's go a little bit with this flow of code here. So we have the variable current line is 0, and then we enter this loop. And what is happening here is that we are asking for the lines of data. And well, this is going to return an array with the lines. And then here we are saying, well, give me the element in this array here. Give me the element in position of whatever the value of current line is. So the value of current line is 0. Therefore, this would be the same as saying like this, 0. Therefore, it's just saying, give me the first element of, or give me the first line. And then it's going to return a string, which is going to be the content of the first line, and it's going to assign this value to the line contents variable. And then we are just moving forward here and saying line, and then whatever is here in current line is, and then the contents of line contents. Well, I already explained this code, so I'm not going to go through that again. And if you think about it, what's going to happen next time this loop goes by is that current line is going to be 1. So this is just going to be like doing this. And then after like this. And then after like this. And that's it, because we're going to hit the break here and we're going to exit this loop. So I want to go back to current line here. And if I run it again, just make sure that I didn't change anything by accident. There you go. It's there. It's working. So well, we still don't have the solution for this. So if we just go and print, for instance, the line contents. So just print line contents here. You're gonna see that it's just a matter of printing. This whole thing here is no different than just doing puts data. Puts data is doing the same thing. So this is the result of puts data, and this here is the result of this whole loop thing. So why are we doing this loop thing? Well, because now inside the loop we can go through each line separately, and you can deal with each line in a separate way. And if we do line contents that class, you're going to see that each line is actually string. So we have 4 strings now. And well, now I want to do something a little bit more different than this. And I want to come here and say line contents equals, I want to do like key underscore value. So it's just a name of a variable equals, and then line contents dot, and then I'm going to call split. And the parameter of this is going to be the equal sign. And if I put this here and save it, what is going to happen if we run this? So now it got a little bit different. And what this is doing, and I really suggest that you pause this video now, you go to the Ruby documentation as I showed in the previous lesson, and you read about what split does. So split is a function or a method of the string class. So I really suggest that you go and read about it. So what it really does is it takes this parameter here, and it is going to split. You see that the equal sign is not being printed here anymore. And that's why it's splitting this string. And where is this split happening? It's splitting wherever this equal sign is. So if we get the class or the type of the key value variable, we're going to see it's an array. It's an array. Now I wonder how long is that array. If we put here length, we're going to see that we are going to have different numbers. So let me open the configuration file here. So remember, the first line is empty. So imagine you take this line and I say to you, please split this line wherever you find a equal sign. And then you go like, yeah, but there ain't no equal sign here in this line. In fact, there's nothing in this line. And then you just don't split. You don't do anything because you cannot split if you don't have an equal sign. And the equal sign is because it's an equal sign here. So for the next line, I'm saying, well, split this string wherever there is an equal sign. So what this is doing here, you see that we have a list or an array. There's the same thing. We have a list of 2 things. So and what the split function is doing, it is taking this line and it's making this first part here, so width, and this white space also included, and this is the first element of the list. And then this is being used as a splitting thing, so it's not going to be included anywhere. And then whatever is after it, it's going to be this space and then the 1000 thing. And to prove that, I'm going to do it like key value, and then whatever is in the first position of this array, we're going to say that we're going to see that it's going to be the name, like it's going to be so it's going to be the first here. So it's going to be whatever is on the left side. So color, width, and height. So you can see that we already are getting, we are able to already extract some information. We are already able to separate the value here from the configuration name, or the attribute, or the parameter, however you want to call it. And if we take the 1 here, you're going to see that you're going to have the seconds here. So it's going to be the values, actually. It's going to be blue and 1000 and 4000. And now you might be wondering, but well, what about this empty line here? Well, I don't want to go in detail here, but you see the size of this first one is 1. So in a list of only one element, how can you, if this is the first and this is the second element, how can you get the second element of it? And well, you're going to see this more in detail in the next lesson. For now, just believe me, that's returning nothing. It's just returning really nothing. And we want to actually go and skip this. So whenever we have an empty line, we want to skip it. And to do that, so before we continue here, we have to skip it. And what is one characteristic that we know about empty lines? Well, it's that the length of the key value is 1. So we can say that whenever if the key value, if the length of the key value, or if there's no equal sign, is 1 equals 1, then we want to do something. We want to ignore this. We don't want to process this line. We want to proceed to the next line. And well, we can do that in a different way. We can just take this condition here and we can invert it. We can negate it. So we say that whenever the length is different than 1, or you could even say like whenever the length is 2, which is a valid thing, but let's just use different than 1. So whenever it's different than 1, then now we want to process it, and we want to say like puts, and then well, let me just say that key is going to be key value, and then the first, and then value is going to be key value, and then the second element of it. And I want to say like puts key, and then key equals, I'm going to use the word equals, it's going to be value. So the key, so we can think of this as pairs of one key and a value, a key and a value, a key and a value. And I'm using this key and value naming because this is also very common in software in general. So you get already used to calling it key values. So if we run this, let me actually run it again. So you can see the key color equals blue and key width equals 1000. So if you compare it to this file, it actually makes sense. So we have now only 3 entries here, and we have also 3 valid entries here. And if we put more blank lines here in the beginning or after the end of the file, and we run it again, we're going to see that only the lines that make sense are going to be processed. Now, what can we do here? We can say that, well, we already extracted some information here, and but there's something odd here going on. So you see that there's color here, but there's an extra space. So if I select here, you can see there are 2 spaces, and also here there are 2 spaces. And why is this happening? Because here we only have 1 space, and also here we only have 1, and here we also have only 1 space. So what is going on here is that this split thing here, it's splitting right in this equal sign. However, we are taking this color space and then space blue, and this is why we have this, and this is why we have these extra spaces there. And Ruby, fortunately, it has a function to remove this extra space, and it's called strip. so strip, and we can do both strip. So this is gonna take the first element in the key value array, and which is gonna return for this first thing here is gonna return color space, color, and then a space, a white space character, and it's gonna apply the method, or it's gonna call the method strip on it. And strip, what strip does, well, you should go and read the documentation again, please do that, but I'm gonna tell it quickly, and it's gonna remove extra spaces from both the left side of the string and also from the right side of the string. And we want to do it for the key, and we also want to do it for the value. So let's save this and run it again, and now you can see that these extra spaces are gone, so it's only one space. And now we can do something like processing this. So let's say if key equals color and value equals blue, and then we can do something special here, like let's say you can say, oh, you got my favorite color. It's not actually my favorite color, but for the sake of the example, we can go in and do it like, oh, you got my favorite color. You got my favorite color. Why? Well, because the color is blue. Now, if we change the color to red in the configuration file and we run it again, we see that this was not the favorite color. If we change it back to blue, we see that, well, there you go, it's there, the favorite color. If we change the width to blue and then change this to like yellow, you're gonna see that it's not gonna be there. It's not gonna say that the favorite color is the favorite color, because we're saying that for the key called color, if the value is then blue, then we say that it's the favorite color. So you could for instance use this for data validation. You could say like, if the color is if the key is color and the value is I don't know, yellow, let's say yellow, then you could say yellow is an invalid color, please choose another one. So now we have the color yellow, and if you run it, it's going to say yellow is an invalid color, please choose, and I made a typo here, please choose another one. So you could use it for that. Yeah, so now we could now we have the values, and we could, for instance, put these in variables. So let's say we have a variable here called color, and it's going to be, let's say the string is going to be unknown. So this really means that the color is unknown, and after this loop, let's put here final color, or the final color is, and then we say color. So here's color is not known, and if you run this, it's gonna say that the final color is unknown, but we wanna actually go and take the color value from the configuration. So what we're gonna do here is, well, I'm gonna do the same thing. If key equals color and value equals, well, actually there's no and here. So if key equals color, we can say that the color variable up there is going to receive whatever is in the variable called value. Now if we run this again, you're going to see that now the final color is yellow, because that's what in the color key. So we could also, for instance, for getting the width, so width, and I'm just going to go back here and change this width to an actual number, because it makes more sense. So we could also go ahead and say like, if key equals, and then width, could be double quotes, doesn't matter. I'm just going to use it just to show that it works. We could say that then the width, which is up here, and we can see that it's also null. So width is gonna be whatever is in the value variable. And then here in the end, we also gonna say like puts, and then the final width is, and then just print whatever is in the width variable. And so the final color is yellow, the final width is 1000. So you see that adding these ifs here and doing all this logic, we can now extract this data from this file. And we could even go ahead and do something like height equals, and then unknown, sorry, another typo there, and if key equals height, then the value of height equals the value here. And well, let's do something over here. Let's say height here and copy paste. And if I run this now, it's gonna be like, well, I'm gonna remove these puts here because it's not helping anymore. It's just making clutter. So running this again, you see that the final color is yellow, the final width is 1000, and the height is 4000. Now there's a little detail that I want to put in here. Is like if I do something like actually if I want to like do something more with this and say that the area, so the area is, and then what's the area? Well, the area is the width times, so multiply by the height. So width times height is going to give us the area. And then see, there's going to be an error because we cannot multiply strings. So this should be numbers. And to convert it to a number, we can use the method called toI, because this is going to convert to a integer. So toInteger. An integer is a number that doesn't have a comma. It's well, it's an integer number. So, and then we're saying that width is value, but it's actually a number. So it's going to process whatever is in value string, and it's going to transform it into a number. And then we can run it again, and then we can see that now we are starting to make sense of this data. So 1000 times 4000 is equals this big number over here, 4 million, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, that is one way to read a configuration file and extract the data out of it, and then we can start using it, even converting the types of it. So that's it for next lesson. That's it for this lesson, and next lesson we're going to see more in-depth details about the concepts that we've seen only in a superficial way in this lesson. So see you next time. Goodbye.